This is Home Value Stories. I'm Jamie Owen. This is a podcast that is designed to educate you, the consumer, on things related to real estate and real estate valuation. I'm so happy to be here with you again today. I've got a question for you. Are you a mouse jiggler? Have you used a mouse jiggler? Do you even know how to jiggle a mouse? Well, you might be thinking, Jamie, you are a few French fries short of an adult Happy Meal. And you'd be right. By the way, an adult Happy Meal at McDonald's is a real thing, and so is a mouse jiggler. A mouse jiggler is a device that plugs into a computer, and it's used to fake the computer into thinking that the mouse is actually moving. Now, there's some ways that people use it that are totally cool, like avoiding screensavers turning on when there's maybe something you're trying to download or things like that. How does this relate to real estate valuations or any profession for that matter? Let's talk about it. I'm sure it's not news to you that since the pandemic started, a large number of people began working at home remotely. And companies have found ways of making sure that people are really working at home. One way, though, that people are cheating the system is by using a mouse jiggler. They use the jiggler to make it appear like they're working, when in fact, they're actually binging Netflix, or hiking, or sleeping, or shopping, or doing something other than working on their computer. Now you have to ask the question, is that harmless? Can taking shortcuts hurt people? First of all, let me clarify that I'm not talking about shortcuts in the sense of being efficient. I think we all need to strive to be more efficient, and that benefits us, and it benefits those that rely on our work. The kind of shortcuts that I'm talking about are those where we just skip doing the things that we should be doing as part of our work. Builders who take shortcuts on construction can compromise the structural integrity of a building. And of course, sometimes they get away with it until that building is placed under extreme forces, which may expose areas that are compromised due to the shortcuts taken maybe years ago. So yes, shortcuts can hurt people in a professional way. Shortcuts can also hurt us in a very physical way. Back in 2019, I had signed up for the Cleveland Half Marathon. I had picked up running and I enjoyed running. I'd done a 10K, the Cleveland 10K, and really enjoyed that. So I thought, hey, 2019, that'd be a great year to sign up for the Cleveland Half Marathon. And of course, I was in better shape at that point. But then the pandemic struck and we could do a virtual race. But to me, that wasn't as fun, just walking or running through the park, being tracked, as it would be to run with a group of people. So I waited and waited a couple of years until 2022. And finally, the Cleveland Marathon was back in action. So in the winter of 2021, I began to train for that marathon, and I hadn't really run much over that prior year or two. And I began to inch up my runs like one would do, and what that we're encouraged to do when we're preparing for a marathon. But it got busy. In fact, it had been busy in 2020 and 2021, and of course 2022. Real estate was just on fire. And so I got so busy that I didn't make the time to inch up my runs like I should have. So I was doing a couple of 5 and 6 mile runs per week, and that was good, but it really needed to be more. The week before the race, I was out in the Cleveland Metro Parks, And I thought to myself, if I can run 10 miles, I can certainly run 13 miles. So I got up, and it was a beautiful Saturday morning, early in the morning, and I started my run. And about 8 miles into that run, which is, by the way, about 2 miles more than I had been regularly running, my left leg became sore. And I thought, well, I probably pulled a muscle or something. Anyway, I hobbled back to the car, and later it was found out that I stress fractured my leg to such a degree that I had almost broken my leg through. Now, that's unusual to stress fracture a leg, I think, to that level just from running, but I did. And it was all because I took shortcuts. I didn't make the time to do what I was supposed to do to run that Cleveland half marathon. And it hurt me. And then I spent the last summer, a good portion of it on crutches. Then I had to have surgery on my leg, and now we're back in action. So that's the good news. But the point is, if I had taken the time to inch up my runs like I should have, instead of taking a shortcut and just trying to get it all done at once, I would have been much better off. So how about when it comes to our professional career? Whatever we may do. You may not be an appraiser, you might be a real estate agent, or in some completely different line of work. If we make shortcuts, if we don't do the things we're supposed to do, it really can hurt us and those that rely on our work. Let me give you an example. In every appraisal, we appraisers must determine the highest and best use of a property. Now, that's more than just looking up the zoning, but that is the first step. We've got to figure out what the zoning is. We've got to read through the zoning code, and we have to determine the legal uses of a property as vacant, and then if there's improvements on the property, as improved. And we have to figure out if a potential use of a property is physically possible, is it financially feasible, and is it most profitable? Those things can make a difference in value. Interestingly, in the last couple of months, I've appraised several duplexes where the highest and best use were actually a single-family homes. There was a value difference between being used as a single-family home versus a two-family home, and in both cases, the properties were more valuable as single-family homes, no matter how you slice the dice. In fact, in the case of one of the properties, if that two-family home was to be destroyed, it couldn't even be rebuilt as a two-family home again. It was being used legally, but in a non-conforming way. And the city told me if it gets destroyed, it must be rebuilt as a single-family home. So I had to appraise the property accordingly. And so that would obviously has an impact on value. But what if I had just guessed on the zoning? I just put, R1, that sounds good. See, that would have hurt me, and it would have hurt those relying on my report. Here's another one, making up adjustments. In most appraisals, we do make adjustments to the sales prices of the comparable sales to make those sales more similar or equal to the property that we're appraising. And while USPAP does not say that we must make adjustments necessarily, most appraisers, including myself, usually make adjustments on most reports. Now, when appraisers guess on their adjustments, they're just PFAing it, that is, plucking it from the air. At least usually from what I see, those adjustments are usually considerably lower than the market is actually paying for that particular feature of a home. Why is it lower? Well, usually if an appraiser is making up an adjustment, they're going to be lower because they're afraid of being too high and red flagging their work, where someone may take a deep dive into their work and realize that, hey, there's really not market support for that adjustment. So we have to make sure that we have support for our adjustments in our appraisal report, in our work file. Making up site value is another one, the value of the land. If we're just making that up, or maybe we're just using the assessor's value for the value of the site on the property that we're appraising, And then we're trying to develop the age life method so that we can figure out the depreciation on the property. See, if we've just made up the land value, that's going to skew the numbers, and that's going to have an impact on market value. The point is, if an appraiser takes shortcuts, it's going to probably hurt others in one way or another. And of course, if they get in trouble with the state board and the state board looks at their report, that could cause them some pain as well. Now, I would like to say this. There are no perfect appraisers. I am far from perfect. I make mistakes on my reports at times, and every appraiser does. I'm not talking about perfection. I'm not really talking about skill. I'm talking about just doing the things that we're supposed to do. And if we don't know how to do certain things as appraisers, we need to find out how to do them. We need to take some classes and get educated. If you're not an appraiser, well, the same would apply, I'm sure, to whatever profession that you're in. We need to do our work in a way that is honest. Let's talk about a scenario in which if an appraiser takes shortcuts and doesn't do the work they're supposed to do, it might hurt those parties relying on that report. Let's talk about a divorce for a minute. Now, in a divorce, there's usually a marital home. And so one member is going to keep the home. The other member or spouse is going to have to be paid off. So let's just say that they hire an appraiser to determine the market value of that property. And let's say that that appraiser knows that there's a good chance that this is going to go to court. And that appraiser is going to be grilled on the stand, asked many questions about how they develop their opinion of value. So they work really hard. That appraiser works really hard to do everything properly. They don't take any shortcuts. They do good work. They develop their opinion of value, and they submit it. Well, then the divorce is finalized, and the one mate has to pay the other mate off. So they go to the bank, and they go to take out a loan. And of course, the bank will have their own appraiser that goes out to the property. But let's just say that in this case, the appraiser that the bank sends out is cutting corners. They're not developing their opinion of value properly, and they're just blasting out appraisals day after day. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that this is how most bank appraisers are. I'm just saying in this case, let's just assume that that's the situation. And let's just say that their opinion of value is considerably less than the opinion of value of the appraiser that completed the appraisal for the divorce. Well, now the homeowner that has to pay off their spouse is in a bit of a pickle because the bank's not going to lend more than a certain percentage of what the home is appraised for. And so, yes, if an appraiser takes a shortcut, that can have a negative impact on the parties involved. Now, I will also say this. Usually, if you hire two appraisers, you're going to get two different numbers, but they should be within a reasonable correlation of one another. And if both numbers are well supported, then that's fine. That's typical. I'm talking about one appraiser that did not do what they were supposed to do in the development of their opinion of value, and one that did. But just because the values are different, that in itself is not a problem. It's not a red flag. Now, for argument's sake, let's flip this around, and let's say that two people are getting a divorce. They hire an appraiser to develop an opinion of the value of the marital property. And let's say that that appraiser just totally takes shortcuts. And let's say that they come in considerably lower than the market value of that property. Well, in this case, somebody's going to get cheated. And it's going to be the mate that is to be paid off because they're not getting a fair amount of the equity in that home, all because that appraiser took shortcuts and didn't credibly develop their opinion of market value. So the lesson here is not to be a mouse jiggler. No matter what profession we're in, taking shortcuts can hurt others. So we want to do the best that we can to do good work. We all make mistakes, and that's a different story. But we want to do the best that we can because people are relying on our work, whatever it is. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I know it's been a while. Next month, I have a special guest who's going to tell us about a really cool new technology for buyers looking for a mortgage loan and some interesting ways that the technology benefits them. This podcast has no sponsors. However, I did want to tell you about a cool way to create a floor plan and home measurements using only your cell phone. It's called Kubicasa. Now, while they're not a sponsor of this show, I am an appraisal ambassador for them, meaning that they do compensate me to tell others like you about it. And you really should check them out if you need a floor plan. There's no fancy equipment, there's no minimum number of scans, and they offer free floor plans. Who does that? Now, Kubicasa does that. But if you need more than the floor plan, like you need the measurements of your home, for $15 more, you can get the report that shows you the actual measurements of your home as well. How cool is that? And while it's free for the floor plan, the more you use it, you do build up credits that will give you discounts if you decide to use some of the other features that they offer. If you're a realtor, a homeowner, an appraiser, or in a profession where you need a floor plan, give them a try. I am confident that you will be impressed. Until we meet again, friends, I hope that all of your stories are happy ones.